So it looks like Pompeo heading to the Senate. Well, is heading to the Senate and heading to confirmation. The next big question mark is going to be whether or not we will have a torturer as the head of the CIA. That won't come up in front of the Senate for another week or two. But meanwhile, poor Ronny Jackson. I'm really starting to feel bad for this guy. Because he thought he was going to get a nice gig in and I really do think this, that the VA is the single most complicated agency in the United States government. It has about 375, I think it is, maybe 400,000 employees. Essentially 9 million customers. They provide services that are across the board in terms of services, not just healthcare, but and not just in sort of insurance and mechanisms to pay for it, but services across the board. And on top of that, the medical services they provide are completely unique. They are not replicated to a large extent in the general public. And to the extent that they are, they emanate out of the VA because you're dealing with a clientele that have suffered very specific types of injuries and contract specific illnesses because of their time in war. It is incredibly complicated. The number of people that Jackson would oversee, as opposed to, specifically administratively, I don't even know what it's a factor of what. I mean, 60,000 more. Times the number of people that he's managing now. It's incredibly complicated job. He apparently has no. He's a rear admiral, but in terms of like actual executive and administrative functioning, there's no resume there. But for whatever reason, in our system of government, that can't be questioned. Or that's not questioned, and that's not a legitimate question. It's got to focus on his personal behavior, which apparently is not terribly above reproach for someone in his position. Here is John Tester on Anderson Cooper last night explaining.
These are called controlled substances for a reason. We have.
So he would actually just go down the aisle and just sort of say,
that's correct.
Who wants to go to sleep, who wants to wake up?
That's the reports we got from the people, the 20-some people who got a hold of us and said, we've got a problem, this doctor has a problem, because he hands it.
Now, so they're talking about apparently on these trips that he would hand out Ambien and hand out another drug, I think it's Mendifol, I can't remember exactly what it is. That would wake you up. Now, my understanding is, as someone who takes Ambien, and I get it prescribed from a distance at this point, this doesn't seem to me to be that huge of an offense. Apparently, in the military, they hand out that Mendifol like it's...
Its brand name is Provigil, right?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And okay. He's doing that. I'm not sure what bearing it has. You get these doctors who work on productions, and it's just like, how you feeling? Great. Okay, terrific. Here's your, this doesn't seem to be that much of an offense, but
Randy,
they're making it.
They're
making hay, and then there's the other issue, the drinking on the job, which I think is a little bit more problematic.
It always
but
keeps you up and never lets you down.
He's got a nickname which is fatal.
All right, good.
Because he hands out prescriptions like candy. In fact, in the White House, they call him the candy man.
So I just want to be clear, Ambien is actually one of the drugs?
I can get you the, okay. It's a drug. It is a prescription drug, and I can get you the name.
Your staff had told us Ambien and Provigil.
Bingo. Okay. Those are the ones.
All right. And I understand he had a nickname in the White House among some of the White House staff.
And it was the candy man because he handed out prescription drugs like they were candy.
And the other issues are that he apparently was drunk on the job. Now, he claims he never drank while on duty, but it sort of sounds like maybe he was still drunk while on duty from the night before, which is, a little problematic when you're supposed to be protecting the health of a really important person. I think I would have issues if Matt came in more drunk than he does now. And he's just working the soundboard. But
uppers and downers.
But here's the point. Here's the broader, the broader issue. And this is just another person who is highly unqualified. If you make an assessment of competency based upon what many of us assume most people want out of their government, which is it to function well and to function as a common good. But the bottom line is that Trump will put in a guy like Jackson because he likes them, and Trump is simple-minded and he thinks he's a good guy, even though he's basically inviting him yesterday to quit. And then when he saw him in person and Jackson didn't offer to quit the nomination, Trump was like, good, you shouldn't, because he's too afraid to actually say it to his face. The bottom line is this is not a coincidence that we have what we would traditionally call incompetent people in these positions, because the idea of the Trump administration primary objective being to deconstruct the administrative state is still operable. And we see it in every single department. We'll talk about it with Mick Mulvaney later in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. You see it in the DOJ. They stop issuing consent decrees. They stop monitoring police departments. They stop pursuing a whole host of things, except for, of course, the sanctuary city stuff. You see it in virtually every single agency. Their PPO, their Presidential Personnel Office, is a joke because they don't care. They just want a conduit. And this is what I said last night on MSNBC. But we don't have it. So
this is the point I was trying to make about Betsy DeVos, too. It's not
Same.
that she's incompetent at her job. It's that her job is to destroy public education, and she can't say that out loud.
yes, we all have an assumption about what competence is in these positions, and we're operating on a different plane of existence than they are. They measure competence by how quickly can you transfer public dollars into the private sphere. You see it with HUD. You see it in every single agency and agencies that we can't even see. And so, it's true. Donald Trump is a moron when it comes to personnel. And because he himself is so rotted inside and lacking integrity, that's who he attracts around him.
What?
You have a guy, this is funny, Chris Kobach. Apparently, in his lawsuit,
Yes, this was great.
In his lawsuit, where he is being charged with, and he's already been admonished by multiple courts for suppressing votes. There's one argument that they try and make in a brief that was submitted to the federal court, and it was they're making arguments as to why the case should be dismissed, I believe. And argument number 4, I don't know what paragraph this is, but this is document 522. Plaintiffs Fish, Bucci, and the League of Women Voters lack standing. But it's not a statement, it's a question mark. And then in caps, probably not worth arguing, question mark. This is the quality of legal work that you are getting from the Secretary of State, who is trying to defend disenfranchising voters, and they forget to take out the part this is so ridiculous it might be a detriment to us to argue it because it's so laughable. It's not worth arguing. They resubmitted it. And took out those lines.
That's like when you hand in like a paper in college and you're like sleep deprived in finals and you realize like in the middle you put in parentheses just like, you know, a string of curse words. And then if your professor's nice, they're like, you want to hand in a different version of this?
I
And you're
mean,
like, yeah.
it's
thank
a
you."
joke.
But
It's
this
a
is
joke.
like actually
But it's because
the equivalent of I'm trying to disenfranchise millions of voters.
they're not assessed on the same so-called merit system that we would assess other people working in government. They're assessed on their ability to extract. And if you think this is new with Trump, Google Grover Norquist and shrinking government to a size where you could drown it in the bathtub. This is the long-term Republican conservative agenda, and it just so happens they found the right boob to carry it out. All right, we got to take.
Nice.
We got to take.
Ivanka boobs.
We got to take a break.